It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today I'm going to continue the series on building a business on open source. Now, I've taken a few weeks off from that because I wanted time to kind of think about some of the things that we really want to focus on. And one of the things that I was thinking about is time tracking. In a lot of businesses, you want to have some kind of time tracking, especially if you're doing a service for other people. Now, in IT, you could be doing time tracking of how much time you're spending on somebody's systems. In support, you could be doing time tracking and how long you're supporting somebody. There's so many different kinds of things where you could do time tracking, and it's really important now. I did a review a while back on a tool called Zamad, and it's really kind of a help desk support ticketing system. It's really great, and it's got a lot of power, and the more time you spend in it, the more you figure out that you can do with it. And one of the things that you can actually set up in it is some time tracking. Now, that's really useful if you're doing support type ticketing work. But there's lots of businesses where you're not going to be doing ticketing type work. You're going to be doing other types of work, but where you still need to track your time and make sure you're billing your clients appropriately. Now, I've seen this done in many ways. Some people say if I spend more than 10 minutes, I bill you for the whole hour. Some people bill you by the 10-minute increment. Some people bill you by the 5-minute increment. It's kind of up to you how you figure out how you're going to bill people. But for me personally, when I bill for my time, I knock it down to the 5-minute increment. I just feel like it's not right for me to spend 10 minutes on something and then bill somebody for an hour's worth of work. There's a lot of time left in an hour. Even if I have to drive somewhere else, I don't feel like billing them for that. That's just me personally, but that's the way that I do things. So keeping track of my time is really important. So today I want to talk about a time tracking tool called Traggo. It's pretty easy to get set up, which I like. It's a great starter tool at the very least. And if you figure out you need something more, then we can always look at better or more powerful tools in the future. But I think this has a ton of capability right off the bat to get you started and get you started pretty easily. So I'm going to go through how to set it up, how to install it, and then a little bit of the usage of the tool itself, so that you can get up and running really quickly and start keeping track of your time for your clients and billing appropriately to how you want to bill them. So billing is super important, and being able to provide your clients with evidence of what you've been doing with time tracking is just really, to me, something that says, you know what, I care enough that I'm tracking what I'm doing for you, and I care enough that I want to make sure that you know that I do that as well. So this is a really great tool, and it's got some cool features, so I think you're really going to like it. We're going to get to the installation right after this. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up. And that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. Getting to the installation of Traggo isn't hard, and as always, I'll have links in the show notes and the description for how to get to the Traggo pages. But once you get to the main Traggo page, you can scroll down. You can see quite a bit. There's a few screenshots of what you can do. So there's a nice calendar view that shows you what's been going on with your time tracking. There's a dashboard you can set up for some reporting. Some really cool stuff just built into it, which is great. It also has some versioning things that you can read about. But when you get ready to do the installation, you can just click here on the installation tab, and it jumps over. And you'll see here we've got the installation. Now, I had it open in a separate tab just in case I needed to jump over to it more quickly, but either way, you're going to get to it very fast. This loads up really quickly. So they have Docker, which is the way that I love to do things right now. It's just one of the best ways that I've found to install and run a lot of services all at once. So as you read down, you'll find that they have this Docker run command. So if you prefer Docker run, that's great. You can grab that and kind of use it. But if you like Docker compose like I do, because I feel like it makes things easier to run, then they've also got this docker compose.yaml file. Now, as you go down, they talk about having some different things as far as configuration and looking at the configuration to change it. What I found is in their configuration file that I've looked at, which is here, really all of this stuff you're kind of setting in the compose file anyways. So it makes it pretty easy just to grab this compose file and run it. So we're just going to grab this. We're going to highlight it and copy it. And we'll have that in our back pocket for just a minute. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to move this off to my other screen. And we're going to open up our terminal, and you want to make sure you're on the server that you want to install this on. So in my case, I've SSH'd over to my Docker testing server. Now, if you've never installed anything before and you haven't gotten Docker set up and running, I have videos out there on how to install Docker, Docker Compose, and NGinX Proxy Manager, which are some tools that are very useful for self-hosting. So I'll link to those in the show notes in the description. But you can find them on my YouTube channel as well. I have a script that makes it really easy to install Docker and everything like that. So that makes it really nice. It's kind of a one-run script, and you get everything installed. Docker, Docker Compose, and NGinX Proxy Manager, Portainer for managing your Docker stuff if you want a GUI. So it's really makes it easy. But I've got everything installed already. But the way I like to do things is I like to put things in a hierarchy. So I can do, Docker is my first folder, and then I like to have the name. In this case, it would be Traggo of my application folder. And every application is inside my Docker folder. So if I go and I just cd into Docker and I do an ls, you can see here I've got Free Scout, I've got ERP Next right here where I'm working on a new video for that, and I've got Lemmy, and I've got a MicroTalk SFU, N8N, Nextcloud. So I've got all these things that I've set up inside of this Docker folder. The thing is, when I get ready to back all this up, I just zip up the Docker folder, which is the parent level folder of all these things, and I push that over to my NAS for backup, which is great. That can run in a script, and it can run on a time schedule. You can use something like Restic, or you can use something like Borg Backup, or Duplicati, or Your Backup, kind of whatever you want to do as far as that goes to get those things backed up and keep them backed up on a regular schedule. Now, if you don't have your Docker folder set up yet, if you run my script, it'll set one up for you. But if you don't have it yet, it's really easy, and you don't even have to do it in 2 steps. So we're going to do this in a way that says, you know what, I'm going to do mkdir, which is make directory, -p, and then I'm going to type docker/Traggo. So you can see I don't have a Traggo folder here yet. So what this command says is make a directory, and if the Docker directory doesn't exist yet, go ahead and create it. But if it does exist, which it does in my case, just use the one that's there. And then at the next step it says, if the Traggo folder doesn't exist yet, create it. If it does exist, just use the folder that's there. So you're kind of getting a really easy way to create folders if you use that -p. So I'm just going to hit enter. Now if I do cd docker and I do ls, you'll see that I now have a Traggo folder right here. So I can go into here and I can actually start making my Traggo information. So I'm just going to cd Traggo. I'll clear this out to give us some space to see, and we're going to do Nano. That's the text editor that I prefer. Now, if you like Vi, Vim, if you want to use a graphical editor, if you have a desktop, that's fine. But if you're SSH'd in, I just use Nano. So Nano, and we're going to do docker-compose.yml. And then here I'm going to do Control-Shift and V. That pastes in that text that I copied out of their web page. And we're going to look at this just kind of line by line. So we're just going to go right up to the top here, and you just use the arrow keys to navigate. So version 3.7 should be fine. Depending on your Docker Compose version, you may have to lower that to something like 3.3, but we'll see how it runs. We're going to create some services, and the first service is going to be called Traggo. The image is going to be Traggo server:/latest is what we're going to pull. Now the port mapping is important. So on the right side of your port mapping, that is what's running on the container, and the container expects this port to be set, so you should never mess with this right side port. But on the left side, this is your host machine port. So this is the port of the machine you're running Docker on. If you're already using 3030 for something else, you might want to change this port to a different port that's open, or you will want to actually. If 3030 is not already in use, just leave it like this. So next we've got some environment variables, and it's the default username, which is admin, and then the default password. You'll want to change these, most likely. Now you can leave admin if you want to, but that's a pretty common name. So let's just make this my name. In your case, you'd make it your name. And then let's make this a different password. And of course, you'll see it, but this is just a testing system for me, so I'll get rid of it afterwards. But we'll call this capital letter, lowercase letter, number, and we make that nice and long. Now, in theory, you would not use this. You would use something that's a little bit harder. In fact, you should use something like Vault Warden, which I also have a video on, to generate a password for you that's good and strong, and then just paste that password in here. But this gives your user a good password. Next, we've got this volume mapping. So this says from inside of this current folder, that's what the // means, which means it's going to be inside of docker/Traggo. It's going to create another folder called Traggo Data. Then it's going to map that to the container side, which you don't ever want to change this side. You can change this side to whatever you want. You could call this Traggo info, you could call this my info, whatever. But on the right side of this colon, it's going to be /opt/Traggo/data. We want to leave the right side alone. The left side you can change just like with the port mapping. When we're happy with that, we're going to do Control-O to save. Check the name down here. Make sure it's got dockercompose.yml and it's spelled correctly. Just hit enter to confirm the save. Double check our data one more time. Make sure everything looks okay. I think it does, if I'm not missing anything. And then we can exit nano with Control-X. So we're back to the terminal. Now we can run this Docker Compose file with Docker Compose up-d. Now that says pull down the image for Traggo, start it running, and run it as a daemon so that if I get out of this terminal, it continues running in the background so I can access it from the web browser. The next thing I like to run on the first time that I start these up is I do ampersand, and this says now after that command run another command, and I do docker-compose, and we're going to do logs-f. So this says after you get this thing up and running, show me the log output for it so that I can see what's happening and kind of maybe catch any errors. So I'm going to hit enter. It's going to go out and pull down the Traggo stuff. Pull down pretty fast, and you can see right here where it says done. That means Traggo was finished installing and it got up and running. And it just gives us a little bit of data output here for the logs. Sometimes the logs will just stream forever depending on the application. But it's telling us right here that it's ready on 3030. Now, this is telling us what it's ready on inside the container. So even if it says 3030 and you change that port, you want to go to the port you changed it to. So I'm going to bring over my browser, and I'm going to go to that host IP address. So whatever your host IP address is on your network, you want to go to that IP address, put a colon, put 3030. You should get a web page like this that loads up, and you should be able to log in with the information you just created on your on your Docker Compose file. So I use the username Brian, and I use the password PA55 capital W 0RD hashtag exclamation point 1234, if I recall correctly. I may have to go back and fix that, but we'll see. You can check to remember me if you want to, but let's just try to log in. And it did log in. So we're logged into our Traggo instance. You can choose to save that in your password manager or your browser if you want to, but we're already into the interface and it's up and running, and it only took us a few minutes, not that long, and it's up and running. So one of the cool things about Traggo is that it's tag based. Instead of having different projects or different tasks, you actually just create tags. So if you have projects, you could just give it a project tag. So let's say you're doing IT for a certain company. You can just put that company name and IT work as a tag, for instance. Or let's say you want to track your time by the things that you're doing. So maybe you're doing programming. Maybe you're doing IT. Maybe you're doing support. Maybe you're doing updates and upgrades. And you want to track all of the time that you do those things across companies even. You can create tags for those things too. So you can put multiple tags on your time entries, and then you can look at your dashboard and look at the way that you're actually using your time in multiple ways. So it's really a cool, powerful way to see your data. Now there's a lot of tabs over here. We don't have any data in the system yet, so if we click, we're going to see that there's nothing here yet because we haven't started using it. But it has a lot of really cool stuff, and we're going to start with tags most likely. But I do want to point out that there are users set up. So you can add more users to your system. So if you have employees, you have yourself, and then you can add users. It's very simple. There's not a lot of complexity to it, but adding users is easy so they can also track their time. So from devices, you can see here I've logged in. So this is kind of an audit, I guess, or a tracking of devices that have used the system. So you can kind of go in and see that information. You can put more information about that item as well. You can kind of define what this is and how they did it. I don't think there's an actual install app, so I don't know why it says Web UI, but you can see what's going on there. And then you do have some settings, not much, but English, we've got it set to dark. There are other themes, so there's light, and it changes automatically. Sorry for the brightness all of a sudden. Here's material dark if you prefer the material dark kind of theme. And then there's material light. Again, I'm going to hit light, so be ready. A light theme, and then you can go back to the dark. So I'm just going to keep it on the Groovebox dark. It looks like a perfectly good theme to me. And Up here you have the list view, which we will see a little bit more once we start to fill it in, and the calendar view again that we'll see once we start to fill it in. And then your dashboard. So you can create different dashboards, you can manage those dashboards, and then of course you'd be able to view the dashboards once you have them set up. So let's first go to tags. We don't have any tags yet. Let's just say that I have a couple of places that I'm doing some work for. So let's just create some tags. So I'm going to create a tag, and you can give it a tag color and things like that as well. So I'm going to call this DRSP, and I'm going to create that tag. Let's give it this color. Oh, let's go to the blues. Let's give it a nice blue. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to create another tag, and let's call this SHS, and I'm going to give that one a little bit of a red. Kind of like that red. I can kind of differentiate between that blue and that red. My color perception is not great when it comes to shades, so I like kind of really really different dominant colors. Let's give it another one. Let's do something here, and let's call this support on call. So there, we've got quite a few tags now. So now let's go into our actual tag tracking, or our time tracking. So don't think tags can have spaces. I think we're running into a little issue here. Let me take out some spaces and replace it with. So once I start this project, I'm not sure why you have to put the value after the colon, except to separate the project out a little bit, I guess. So this could be, I'm doing support, I'm doing it for DRSP, and I put in some kind of value. So this could be the date, it could be something else, just to help you kind of track like which time was this that I was doing this. Even though it should be recording the date, it's actually just getting the time. We can look at the date, we can look at the time. This is a nice little clock that they use for material design. And then over here is tracking the time that we've got set on this. So I can add some notes, and I can say installing primary database updates. And when I go do that, that's going to give me the time that it takes to do this. So I've added my note, I go do the work, we wait for a little bit of time, you know. So I've added the note, I go do the work, and after that amount of time is up, I go and click stop, and it's tracked my time, and it's added that time to the list. So now I can start something new, and I can say, okay, I'm going to do this for laptop updates, and then I can also put that as on site, and we can start. So again, I'm starting, and I can see what I'm working on. This tells me when this was and when I did something. This gets the timer started. I've got some tags here, and I can add some notes. So updating laptop operating systems with newest security updates. You can put how many laptops, all those kind of things that you're doing, what the operating system is if you want to. All kinds of little notes here just to help you remember what you're doing, help your client know what you did and why it took you so long. So if you find that it takes a long time because you're doing Windows updates were massive, took almost 45 minutes per machine, something like that. You can just always kind of put in some extra notes so the client understands where the time is coming from. Now, I'm the kind of person that if I start a Windows update and it doesn't require me to do much interaction, I can walk away and do other things. I'm not going to keep charging them for the time that it's just sitting there doing something while I'm not working on their stuff. So once I've got the update started, I would stop this. And now I've got this time. And then when I came back, I would add a new note that says updates were finished, needed to reboot the system and ensure everything came up to spec. Something simple as that. So again, it's just about you and how you want to bill for your time or charge for your time. So let's say I started this, I walked away, now I'm going to say continue. So it's going to pick up and it's going to start counting up again. And you can see that it's already got my tags in there, so I can continue the work that I created, which is really great. This makes it really easy. I can add more notes, so I can say post update needed reboot for kernel changes. So once it reboots, then I can go back over here and I can stop. So now I've got this aggregate that I'm building up for this task that I've been working on, and I can really see what I'm doing there. So you can kind of pick up and start, stop, start. So you can just do this continue where you're stopping and starting and kind of tracking this time, which is really awesome. So you've got this capability to do this with all of these different things that you're creating on this day, and then you can see that time as you go along. So here, I would kind of expect the calendar to pick up where I'm going, but probably because it doesn't take up a full cycle here where it's not 30 minutes, it's not really going to look very good. It's probably just this block because it's so small. If I click in, it's going to start. It's going to say 11 a.m. and that's now. And again, I can just stop, and I didn't really do much. But you can see that it started building something up here on the calendar, which is fine. So this is a really cool way to track your time and keep continuing that tracking of your time of what you're doing. So when you go to the calendar, you can see over here, if I hover over these little lines, it shows me the different things that it sees there, but they're very small, so it's hard for me to do that. Normally, you'd probably have 15, 20, 30 minutes that take up a little bit more space on this calendar size, and you'd see much more information in detail. So it shows you in both places what you've been doing, but because I'm doing such tiny increments here where it's just minutes or seconds, not very many, it's a little bit harder to see. So let me start one of these, and I'll come back in a few minutes and kind of show you what it looks like once you get a little bit of time under it. So I'm just going to do a continue on this one and let it run for a little bit. Now while that's running, I could actually go and do other work, which is what we want. So at the end of the day, we're saying, hey, I'm keeping track of this, and I can go and look at this. So while that's running, let's go look at our dashboard. Let's manage our dashboard. Let's create a dashboard, and we're just going to call this main dashboard. Once we've created that, over here on the left, you'll see that we've got this main dashboard now. So if we were to create another dashboard, so if I called this DRSP, so just the dashboard for that client, you can see I've got another dashboard that pops up over here. So if I go to main, there's really nothing in it yet. So over here on the upper right, we're going to go to edit dashboard. So there's a mobile view, and then there's this new entry. But there's also this plus. So let's click on plus. So there's going to be some jargon and some context into what this actually means, but it's showing you this week through, basically showing me everything for this week, from November 28th through December 4th. So this is going to be a rolling time frame where it's only showing you what's going on in the week. Now this starts on Monday and ends on Sunday, but that's the rolling time frame for this week. If you want to make this static, you would hit make static and it would only show you this week forever. It wouldn't switch to the next week. Now if you want this to be a rolling dashboard, just leave it set like this and you'll have that. So you've got some different ways of seeing some different information. So now that we've set up that time frame, we're going to go here and we're going to say add entry. Here you can pick a title and we can just say DRSP. Pie chart is probably fine. I'm not sure it's the chart that we need, but you have options for lots of other kinds of charts. Say hourly, monthly, single, weekly, yearly, kind of however you want to do that, daily. So let's just look at single. I'm not sure what that does, but we'll kind of figure it out as we go. Select the tags that we want to use. So I'm going to use DRSP. Let's just do now/W. And there we go. Now we can see a nice pie chart given the week that we're looking at. So if you wanted to see the previous week's information, you would do now -1 week and then /W. And then we can go out of the preview and we can say add. So it's going to add our pie chart. We can see a little bit of information. We've got an edit button up here if we want to edit this thing. It's in editor mode right now is why it looks like that. But we can add another one. And we can say, let's just call this support DRSP. And on this one, let's do a bar chart. Let's do an hourly. And again, we'll make this week since we don't have enough data to really show much. And then we're going to put this as DRSP. And update. There we go. We've got a little bit of data there. And then here's our dashboard that we're starting to create. And you can see you get some information as you hover over the board, which is great. So as we get here, we can see a little bit of data. And again, you can make these different charts. Now, if we go back into edit mode, I think I can move this. Yeah, we can move this up here like this so we don't have to have it in the same spot. And then you've got this little corner where you can drag this out a little bit further so you can resize your dashboard, which is really nice. That's kind of a nice feature to build up your dashboard of things that you want to see. So this makes it really easy. Once we go edit, exit again, we've got this nice chart. We've got a couple of bars there that we can separate out and see. We've got a pie chart. Now, of course, as we build up, it's going to get better. So if we go back here to our tags, actually, if we go back to our list entry here, we've got this run that's running, so it's nice because it stacks the ones below, and the one that's active is up here at the top, so it tells you active threads or active timers. And we can see this one's been running for a few minutes now. Again, we're not going to have a ton of data until this runs for a little while, but once we're done, we can just go up here and hit stop, and now it gets stacked on. So we can go make one for this school as well. So we could go make a new dashboard item for this. Now I'm doing all DRSP, and I should have done it here, but hey, you get the idea. There's our line. Here's our pie chart. Of course, these are going to be the same right now because we're not doing much filtering. We don't have a lot of things to filter on, but you get the idea. You can set up your dashboard. You can do some really cool stuff with this. I think this is a very cool project. Now, I'm running this locally on my internal IP address. So the next thing you might want to do is actually expose this out to the internet. All right, so let's set up a reverse proxy so that we can actually access this from outside of our network. Now, one of the things you're going to need for this is a domain name that you own or a dynamic domain name from something like DuckDNS. So I'm going to go into my Dashy setup here. This is my dashboard. This is called Dashy. People ask me a lot of times, what dashboard am I using? And I'm going to open up NGinX Proxy Manager here, which is the reverse proxy that I use. And I apologize for the bright color. I don't know why this suddenly decided to stop using my dark stuff, but it is going to be a little bit bright, so be patient. We're going to open this up, and we're going to go and add a new tunnel or add a new proxy. And I'm going to call this time.routemehome.org. So in order to make this work where I can just add any kind of subdomain that I want on the fly, I've created an entry in my registrar's DNS that says asterisk. So it looks like this, asterisk.routemehome.org. And that points to my home IP address. Now my home IP address changes, so I use a special little Docker container that kind of watches my home IP address, and if it changes, it goes and updates my entries for my A records inside of my registrar. This little asterisk means anything that comes in requesting this has to go back to my home IP address. So at that point, I can create any kind of subdomain that I want, and it points to my home IP address. So in this case, I can use this one. Next, I need to go and put in the IP address of my server that I'm using, my host machine on my internal LAN. So I'm just going to put that as 10.112. And then I'm going to put the port that is running on. Now I'm going to say block common exploits and WebSocket support. I don't need to cache assets, but sometimes you want to just because it makes it easier with certain applications. But in this case, I'm just going to click those two. First thing I'm going to do is just save this with HTTP only. I'm going to save that entry. I'm going to go down here to time. So time.routemehome.org. I'm just going to click on that and make sure it opens it up. And it does, and it asks me for my login credentials, which is great. Now I'm going to go back out here to the right, and I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to click on Edit. I'm going to go over to SSL. I'm going to click on the little None area, and I'm going to say Request a new certificate. I'm going to say Force SSL HTTP2 support, and then I'm going to make sure my email's here, and I'm going to click on I agree, and then I'm going to click on Save. Now this is going to go out and say, hey, Let's Encrypt, challenge this URL, make sure that you get something back from port 80 that's a valid response, and if you do, assign me a Let's Encrypt certificate, which it just did. So now if I click on this, and you can see it says Let's Encrypt right here, this should open up in HTTPS, because I said go to HTTPS, don't go to HTTP, and you can see right here it's got HTTPS. So now this is an encrypted connection that I'm getting, and I can type in my username and my password that I created. If I typed it right, it should log me in. Yes, there we go. So I'm still logged right back in as my user. I can go up here and start adding time. I can track my time. I can go and see my dashboards that I've been creating. So of course I'd want better dashboards than this, but I've now got this where I can access it from the outside internet. I don't have to be on my local network to do it. Now, if you don't want to be accessing this from the internet, you don't have to do this last section where we just did the proxy. But really, NGinX Proxy Manager makes it so easy. And I've got videos on how to get NGinX Proxy Manager installed, set up, and running. It's very, very simple. It runs in Docker as well, which is awesome, makes it really easy. But you can see I can route all of the different services I want to my home IP address. And really, NGinX Proxy Manager, I go in from outside to NGinX Proxy Manager, and NGinX Proxy Manager routes my requests around my network to different servers for the different applications that I want to use. So now we've got Traggo and we can get in there and it's through an encrypted connection, which is amazing. It's your open source advocate and I'm back and I've set up a store with a little bit of merchandise. I love being your open source advocate, but I want you guys to be the open source advocates with me. So if you want to, get out there and get some of this stuff. And if you do, let me know what you think of it. Thank you for subscribing. That's Traggo. It's a really cool time tracking app. And again, if you're going to be doing any kind of support work or IT work or anything like that, providing your clients with good information and good output about what you're doing is so important. The more tags you get, the more reporting you'll be able to get out of the system and kind of track different things that you're doing and see where you're spending your time, see where your employees are spending their time. It's a great way to really keep track of expenses, a great way to keep track of how you should bill people. And that's really important when you're running a business, and especially a business where time is money, and that's most businesses. So I hope this helps you. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along in the open source journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.